Namaste and good morning, everyone. We'll start with the prayers. Please, you can chant along with me. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. ओम शांति शांति शांति. Now Mahamrityunjay mantra 3 times for those who are in suffering. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ शांति शांति शांति. Welcome everyone. So today we'll start with the topic of explanation of cases. And also I'll take the questions and answers which I have received in the email from you. So we'll respond to some of those questions and answers. So if you remember, we did a number of nominal conjugation, nominal declensions, and they are in 8 cases. So we can refer them to by the word, first case, second case, third case, and we have a name also: nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, genitive, locative, and vocative. So this table is created 8 by 3. As I told you earlier, these cases are in a way a replacement for prepositions in English. So the same thing you will use a preposition for in English, in Sanskrit you will use the respective case. And therefore we identified in some cases what are the prepositions it corresponds with. So accusative case generally corresponds to with the preposition to. So for example, Rama goes to school. Ramaha Vidyalayam Gacchati. So second case comes. In English we don't always use to. He tells a story. Like in English we say he tells a story. But in Sanskrit it is still the object, the story is still the object, and it will take the second case. Then third case we said that by and with, these are the prepositions. So Ramena, that would be the, so it also is used with saha. There is a word called saha, means with. That means Sita Ramena Saha Gachati. Sita goes with Rama. So Ramena Saha. So in that case, it will use the third case. Fourth case, we saw that it is used in general the preposition for. Aham Ramaya Pustakam Dadami. I give a book for Rama. So in English we say to Rama. So that's where you have to remember that it cannot be a one-to-one correspondence between English and Sanskrit. So in English I still use the word to, but here I use the dative case. Aham Ramaya Pustakam Dadami. I give a book to Rama. Then ablative case. Ablative case is the fifth case, which is coming from the from. Like I take a book from Rama. So Ramat. Aham Ramat Pustakam Grihnami. Then genitive. It is the preposition corresponds to the preposition of. So Ramasya Bhrata Lakshmana. Ram's brother is Lakshmana. Locative is the place where something is. So it is the seventh case, in or on. Like we saw in Rama, it can be used figuratively also. In Rama, there are a lot of beautiful qualities. So you will use Rame. And vocative, when you want to call Rama, you want to, hey Rama, come here. So that we will use this. So we'll see a little bit more detail on these uses. So that way, when you encounter those usages in the literature, you can understand why this case is used and also the meaning of that case. So here, this I have taken from the book Sanskrit Subodhini, lesson 3 and 5. So this usage of cases, explanation of cases is from lesson 3 and 5 from this book Sanskrit Subodhini. So nominative case we already saw. It is to indicate the agent of an active voice verb. Like Janakaha Nayati, the father leads. Ramaha Gachati, Rama goes. So that is pretty clear. You remember here it is the active voice verb, the subject. It's the agent of an active voice verb. If it's a passive voice, which we haven't studied yet, we'll study later. If it's a passive voice, just to let you know, if it's a passive voice, then it is the object, what you would put in the second case in the active voice verb, that will become the first case. So we'll study that later, but just to let you know that first case does not always represent the agent or the subject. It represents the subject in an active voice verb. But that part is very clear. And another thing is that the subject always matches with the verb in number. So for example, if you say Ramaha Gachati, you will say Ramau Gachataha, like two Ramas go. So Gachati, we have the verb forms Gachati, Gachataha, Gachanti. And if I'm using a dual verb, that means my subject also has to be dual. So that we have seen many times. Similarly, if the subject is plural, the verb has to be plural as well, Gachanti. So that part will always be the case. You will not find an exception to that. That whatever is the number of the first case word, it is the same number of the verb also. Then accusative case. So we said it is the preposition to. So think of it in general, how would you use the accusative case? So if you are saying a statement and if a question arises like, in the terms of what? So a question arises like what? In the other words, if I say I give, then question is what do you give? Like what? So in general, if that is kind of the question, you will use the accusative case. This is a very rough guide, of course. In English, when we say what, in Sanskrit, another way of saying the same thing may be there. So you have to be just careful. This is a very rough, I am just giving you a very rough idea. We'll give a little bit more specifics. So Janakaha Nayati, father leads. Whom? Here it is like what, you can say in the roughly like the what does he lead, or in English it would be more appropriate is to say whom does he lead. So that will come in the second case. Means what is the object of the verb? Father leads. What is the object of this verb? So subject is father leads, and what is the object of this verb? So sons, he leads the sons. So putran, it will come putran, or irrespective of the number, here it is plural, the verb remains the same, because verb depends upon the first case, not the other cases. So that is a very important part. So even if it's putram, it is still the same verb, nayati. If it's putrau, the dual case, it will still be the same verb, nayati. In English, a transitive verb is a verb which takes an object and it can be converted into passive voice. So like he tells a story. If I have a sentence in English, he tells a story. So this is a tell, this verb in English, this is a transitive verb. Transitive means you can transition into passive. So I can say a story is told by him. So you can convert this sentence, you can transit from active to passive voice. So that's the reason in English it's called transitive verb. But if I have another sentence, say he goes to a school, I cannot say a school is, it will be kind of very odd in English, a school is being gone to by him. We don't normally make that kind of sentence. So that's why the go, this verb, is considered intransitive verb in English. However, in Sanskrit, go is considered transitive and it takes the object in the second case. So like if I say he goes, normally you don't ask the question what, you will say where does he go? Like the question of what does not arise, like I said what here. Nevertheless, in Sanskrit, the verb go does take an object and that comes in the second case. So for example, Dasaha Kupam Gachati. Dasaha Gachati, the servant goes. Where? Even though in English we will ask as where, but in Sanskrit, as I told you, it will take the second case. The object of the verb gam, or there are many verbs in Sanskrit with the meaning to go. All of those verbs will take the object. So in the second case, Dasa Kupam Gachati, he goes to the well. Then there are some special words in Sanskrit. Those special words have their own meanings and they take the second case. So it is like a decided thing that this is like a predetermined list of the words. And there are not very many. There are about these many, maybe a few more, but and this list we will include it in our notes, as well as it is there in the Sanskrit Subodhini, the textbook, so that you don't have to memorize this list right now, but you can understand and refer to it. So anu means after. So how will you make this sentence, for example? So you can say, for example, here, Sita goes after Rama. So in Sanskrit, if I have to say, I'll say Sita Ramam Anu Gachati. Sita Ramam Anu Gachati. Sita goes after Rama or along with Rama. So Anu means following. So Anu Gachati. Here you have to, so Rama comes in the second case. Rama, it comes in the second case because of the word Anu. Sometimes you will see that this is one word, Anugachati, and that is because Anu is also, this word happens to also be a verbal preposition. If you remember from Sanskrit 1 course, there were about 20 words which are used as the verbal prepositions, and Anu also is one of them. And most of the times it will be used as a verb prefix than the separate word as such. However, even though the meaning is the same in both the cases, in this particular case, but grammatically they are two different things. And as I said, generally it is the single word which you will encounter rather than two different words, but sometimes it is possible that you will encounter two different words. And you will also see that when it is a verbal preposition, it will always be with the verb, like it will always be one word. But when it is a separate word, it is possible to have some other word in between. So you can say Sita Ramam Anu Vahanena Gachati, like Vahanena, by car. So she goes after Rama by car. So in that case, Anu and Gachati, they are two different words and they have a separate word in between. But if it is a Anu will be a preposition, verbal preposition, then Anu will come with the verb. So that is the difference. And these words, these specific words, Anu, Abhitaha, Sarvataha, they do take, when they appear in a sentence, they will take the second case. So just to be aware of that. And when you do the practice of this book, the meaning will become more clear to you. So there are a lot of practice exercises in this book, and as you will practice those, meaning will become clearer to you of these different words, special words. They can be used as post or pre. So it is here it is written, these items are used often as both pre and post positions. So just consider them as some special words which which give an additional meaning to the sentence. And all of them are indeclinables. So that means they do not have their own declensions. So no matter whether it is multiple people are following or one person is following or following multiple people, these words will not change. Anu, Abhitaha, Sarvataha, like that. Okay. So I'll just give you an example from Gita 243. Sorry. So here prati, this word prati is coming without any verb following it. It means it's an indeclinable, and it's saying it is taking the second case. Bhogeshwarya gatim. If you remember the word gati, hari, harim, gati, gatim, that is the second case. So Bhogeshwarya gatim prati. That's how it is coming, the second case. Then instrumental case, the third case. So third case be all. So just to let you know, we will cover that in more detail later. When it is a passive sentence, the instrumental case is used the agent. Just like in English also. In English, like we said, a story is told by him. So when you make a passive in English, it becomes by him. In Sanskrit, the similar thing is represented by the third case. So subject is him, he, and it becomes a third case. So we'll see that part later, that how to make passive sentences in Sanskrit. We haven't done that part yet. Then instrument of then action. So that we saw many times. Saha patrena jalam pivati. He drinks water with a vessel or in a cup, like with the help of a vessel. Naraha falena tushyati. Man is pleased with the fruit. So fruit has become an instrument for his being pleased. So think of it this way, instrument of an action. Then, as I told you, there's another special word called saha, which takes the third case, and it means dasena saha nrupo gacchati. King goes accompanied by the servant. So all these things you don't have to take notes right now. We'll include in the class notes, as well as you will also have this in the Sanskrit Subodhini book. Then third case is also used to translate on account of, because of, like dukkhena gramam tyajami. I abandon the village out of misery, because of misery. Dukkha means misery or the sorrow. Tyajami, I abandon the village. I go out of the village. I leave the village. So out of misery or out of sorrow, I am leaving the village. That is the, or you can say, out on account of frustration, he drinks alcohol. Like so that would be that way it came. The third case will come here. So in that case, it is not strictly speaking an instrument, but kind of making a cause. So in that sense also the third case can come. Now preposition vina, without, it means without. Jalena vina kamalam nashyati. So if you don't use vina, for example, here, then what will happen? If you just say jalena kamalam nashyati, that means the lotus perishes by water, like as if water becomes an instrument for the lotus to perish. But when you say vina, means without water, the lotus perishes. So vina is, if you see, this is a special word which also is there in the second case. So it can either take the second case or third case. Both are applicable. Meaning is the same. So you could say here, you can actually put this sentence, and say jalam bina kamalam nashyati. The meaning will remain the same. A lotus perishes without water. So with this word, either the second or third case can come. Then with these two special words, alam and kurtam, both have the same meaning as enough. Alam dukkhena, enough with misery. Or like if somebody is talking too much, enough with all these talks. So let us get to work, like that. In English, we say like that. So in Sanskrit, the similar kind of expression is translated by using the third case. Enough of this talk. Let us get to the work, like that. So enough with this misery. Do something. So alam. Or like you can say, enough of earning the money, let me go to the ashram for a few days. So alam dukkhena. Then dative case, the fourth case is used. So fourth case, if you remember, general sense is for. I give something, I do something for Rama. That would be the for. So it says to indicate the indirect object of verbs meaning to give, to show, to send, etc. Nrupo dasaya kanakam yachati. Yachati means gives. The king gives gold to the servant. Kanakam is gold. Dasa is the servant. Yachati is the verb to mean to give. Nrupa means king. So the king gives gold. So king gives what? So that is the gold. So that comes in the second case, kanakam. And he gives to servant. So even though in English we say to here, but in Sanskrit it comes the fourth case, the dative case. Similarly, in the meaning of show. So if I say in English, I show this book to Rama. So in Sanskrit it would take the aham pustakam Ramaya darshayami. Darshayami is for the show. So aham pustakam Ramaya darshayami. I show this book. So this I have not translated here. It will become etat pustakam Ramaya. So if I say etat pustakam Ramaya darshayami. So again, in this case also it will become fourth case. Then there are some special verbs which normally you will not think that they should take the fourth case, but Sanskrit has a special ways, and these special kind of words with these meanings will take the fourth case in Sanskrit. So when you are angry with someone, normally you will think that because it is with, it should take the third case, but in Sanskrit it will take the fourth case. So like this verb kup, janakaha putraya kupyati. Father is angry with the son. So father janakaha, putra is the son, kupyati. Kup means to be angry. And if you remember from the last class, kup is the fourth class verb. So we discussed these in the last class, the cases here. Fourth, vikarana, gana vikarana, it takes the ya. So kupyati, kup is the fourth class, verb root class of the fourth. So it takes kupyati. All right. So janakah putraya kupyati. Father is angry with the son. So this janakah putraya is pruhati. Father longs for his son. So there also it is the fourth case. You will think that he longs for his son, or it, but the Sanskrit, in Sanskrit it takes the fourth case, spruha. a man longs for his wife, like that. So it will take the fourth case. Then there is this special case, to please, ruch. Kusumani nirupaya rochante. Kusuma means flower, so it's a neuter noun, so it becomes kusumani, plural. Kusuma, kusumani. Akaranta neuter noun. Vanam, vanani. If you remember here, we had vanam, vane, vanani. This is the neuter akaranta. Similarly, that is kusumani, neuter akaranta. Flowers. Nurpaya. This is the fourth case. Rochante. So this is the rochante is a atmanepadi verb, like labhante. If you remember the verb conjugations, labhante. This is the plural of plural verb in the atmanepadi, third person plural. Labhante. So here it is rochante. Kusumani nirupaya rochante. Flowers please the king. Generally, the way it is translated, king likes the flowers. So ruch is a special kind of verb, which takes the fourth case. Then it is used for expressing the purpose of an action. Like if you are performing an action, what is the purpose? Why are you performing an action? So that will also take the fourth case. Saha sukhaya vanam gacchati. He goes to the forest for the sake of happiness. So sukha is means happiness, and it is the fourth case. Vanam is the forest. Saha sukhaya vanam gacchati. Or you could actually say, I go to the ashram for meditation. So this is the purpose, and in this case it will take the fourth case. So the way you will translate is aham dhyanaya ashramam gacchami. I go to the ashram for sake of meditation. Aham dhyanaya ashramam gacchami. Then there are some special words here also. Namaha, swasti, and there are some more. So like if you might have nirupaya namaha, salutations to the king. Nirupaya swasti, hail the king. These are like greetings. So in sense of these greetings, it takes the fourth case. So like many of the mantras, if you remember, Om Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, we say Namah Shivaya. Namah Shivaya. So Namah Shivaya, if you look at, it is the Namaha. Because of Namaha, Shivaya is the fourth case. Shiva. So salutations unto Lord Shiva. So it is also used. So these are the special words in Sanskrit for greeting. Namaha, swasti is also for greeting. There is a vashat, vaushat. Mainly these are used in the mantras as well as in the text. Then there is a word called alam. Alam means enough. We saw that earlier in the third case. Alam means enough. So alam, if you look at here, when I used in the alam dukkhena, alam means enough, enough with misery. It can also be used in the fourth case. And when it is used in the fourth case, then it means one is enough to take the challenge. One is a match for the other. So if I say, I am a match for you, aham alam. In that sense, I'm enough for you. So one has enough. One is a match for fighting this situation or overcoming this situation. So you will say alam. So in that case, you will use the fourth case. So in the third case, when it is used, the meaning is slightly different. It means enough of this. Alam dukkhena, enough of this dukkha, enough of this business. But when it is used here in the fourth case, the same word, it can also, the meaning differs slightly. It means one is enough to meet the situation, to meet the challenge. Then the fifth case. Fifth case is used when something, to indicate the point from which action begins or operates. So Naro Gramat Vanam Gachati. The man goes from village to the forest. So Grama is the word here. Gramat is the fifth case. Naraha, first case, subject. Vanam Gachati. He goes from village to the forest. Or I can say, I go from home to the school. So I'll say aham gruhat vidyalayam gachhami. Aham grahat vidyalayam gachhami. From home, I go to school. Vidyalayam is the school. All right. So this is also indicates a place where the action starts, but the place itself does not change. So the house remains unmoved. I move from the house. Like tree leaves fall from the tree. The tree does not move. Tree remains the same. Leaves fall from the tree. So when the point of action remains stable, but the action makes something else move, then that is the one very common usage of the fifth case, ablative case. We can say fifth case. Fifth case. To express the cause or reason. So there we saw instrumental case may also be used. Nirpodasam dukkhat tudati. On account of misery, the king strikes the servant, or king punishes the servant. If you look at in the third case, we had the similar kind of thing. Dukkhena gramam tyajami. I abandon the village out of misery. So what is happening here is that both cases can be used. It can either take the third case or fifth case. Both will mean the same thing. So one could also say the same sentence. Nurpodasam dukkhena tudati. On account of misery, the king strikes the servant or punishes the servant. Then there are some special words, like we saw some special words in the second case. Similarly, third case like saha or vina. Similarly, in the fifth case, prak, purvam, anantaram, a, bahir, te, vina. So these special words, they will take the fifth case. Then genitive case. So sixth case is used. So this is very commonly used with the sense of the preposition of. Aham nrupasya dasam pashyami. I see the king's servant, or I see the servant of the king. So nrupa is the sixth case, nrupasya. is the sixth case. Dasam pashyami. I see the king's servant. In Sanskrit, there is no verb for translating the sense of have in English. We use the sixth case, and that is the case in most Indian languages. Nrupasya kanakam bhavati, king has gold. So you will say kings is the gold, or so that's how you will make it in Sanskrit. Nrupasya kanakam bhavati. Kings is the gold. If I say I have 5 fingers, so that would be made as thus. It will be making mama my. So you will make it as mama pancha santi. I am not too sure of this word. I'll double check and correct it. We'll put it in the notes corrected. Angulini. But I hope you get the sense that mama is the sixth case of aham. If you remember this table, pronoun table, aham, and this mum, it is the sixth case, means my. So here is the sixth case comes. I have 5 fingers. Mama panchangulini santi. Then there are some special words again here also. Opari, adhaha, purataha. So it will be good if you can make some sort of a cheat sheet for these words, that which take the second case, which take the third case, which take the fourth case. That way you will know whenever you find a case being used, that what is the meaning of the sentence and why this case particularly is used. Okay, so that's how so these are, they are not too many, but there are some special words which take the special cases. Then locative case is used. It is used to, as the case is telling you the location. Locative means location. It is used in the sense of in, at, on, upon, above, like that. Ashwaha kupe patati. The horse falls into the well. So kupa is the well. Seventh case is kupe. Ashwaha is the horse. So the horse falls into the well. Similarly, if I say I am in the house, so you will say aham gruhe asmi. Aham gruhe asmi. I am in the house. So gruhe is the seventh case. Asmi is the verb for aham. If it were saha, it will be asti. Then there is a special word called isnihi. Isnihi means to indicate the emotions, like feels affection. So there are some other verbs with the same meaning, and in that case it takes the seventh case, which kind of is not very intuitive. Why should it take locative? But that's how in Sanskrit it works. Janaka putre snehiyati. The father feels affection for the son. So putre, putra is the word akaranta, and seventh case singular is putre. Janaka putre snehiyati. Father feels affection for the son. So these are not everything. There are of course some special verbs. As you will read more literature, you will learn the usages. But this gives you a nice summary that where all we use which cases. And vocative case is used very simply in case of addressing. Hey Nrupa, hey Rama, like that. O king. Hey Nrupa means O king. So I just wanted to give you a sort of summary of the different case usages so that you can understand the literature better. And that's one of our purpose, to be able to understand the literature better. There, of course, more you practice, more you get exposure, more you will start feeling that, oh, this case is the right one here and it will mean this. So let me see the questions. There are some questions. There is a question, when do you use the saha in a sentence and when is it understood skipped? For example, do you say Nrupaha gramam jayati or saha Nrupa gramam jayati? So this is related to some exercises in the book where the question is saying Nrupaha gramam jayati or saha Nrupaha gramam jayati. So let me take in the end these questions. So Nrupaha gramam jayati. King wins. King conquers the village. That's what it means. And then sometimes you will have saha word also here. So saha Nrupaha gramam jayati. So saha, when it is happening with the Nrupa, normally it means that king. So that means some reference to that king has come earlier in the text. Normally a sentence will not start like in the starting sentence of a text, generally will not have saha Nrupaha gramam jayati. So when you have already talked about that king in the previous sentences of the text, then you can say saha Nrupaha gramam jayati. Saha means it becomes an adjective to Nrupaha becomes that. So that's how it normally comes. Why Nrupo not Nrupaha? That is a Sandhi rule. Here, like for example, you have in our examples Nrupo dasam dukhat tudati. So the actual word is Nrupaha only, but because of Sandhi it becomes Nrupo. There is a question in the sentence kings likes the flower. King is singular. So why is the verb plural rochante? Okay. So this is a good question. If you look at here, Kusumani Nrupaya rochante. The verb determines by the word in the first case. Here the first case is Kusuma, flower, Kusumani, that is plural. Nrupa is not in the first case. So even though in English I say king likes the flowers and king becomes the subject, but the way I am using this sentence in Sanskrit, it actually I'm saying flowers please the king. So flower becomes the subject, that's why it's plural, Kusumani. Good observation. So same question, why is it Atmanepadi? Shouldn't it be third person Parasmaipadi? Same reason. I say Atmanepadi because the verb is Atmanepadi. It has nothing to do with Nrupa or Kusuma. Ruch, this verb, Ruch, it means it is a Atmanepadi verb. So that's why it's taking the Atmanepadi ending. Question, is usually that alam is before the noun or also after? Alam dukkhena or dukkhena alam? Generally it is before, but in poem it is possible to see it after because it's a little bit flexible structure and poets take even more flexibility. But in the normal text it will be alam is the first, not last. The question then is gruhat and gruhataha, can they be used interchangeably? Generally yes. We haven't talked about gruhataha, but generally yes. Swamiji, how to krute? I read somewhere it follows the fourth case. So fourth case, if we look at here, so kritam is the third case, it can be used in the third case, alam dukkhena, kritam dukkhena, or krute can be used in the fifth case. We had this word here, rute. No, krute would be the, I think it is the sixth case here. Krute, for the sake of. So that is the sixth case. And sometimes, as you are saying, like it follows the fourth case, it's possible, like as I told you, that these are not like a watertight departments, but general usages are given here. And you will generally find them in the sixth case. But it's possible that somebody has used it in the fourth case. There's a question. In the second usage of locative, to indicate origin of feelings, it would be allowed to use dative. So this is the second example. Janakaha putre snehiyati. So he is saying, can we have putraya instead of putre for the son? So it is more related to not the sense, but it's like certain verbs which show the object of emotions and feelings. They will take the seventh case in Sanskrit. So as I said, many a times it makes sense in English to see the preposition for and you use the fourth case, but some cases it does not make sense. Sanskrit has its own grammar and it takes its own cases. There is a comment, very clear and useful. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Okay, whatever. So there is a question here. Whatever you're teaching us in the class is the same thing available in Subodhini book. In today's class, yes, it is available in pretty much the same format. I have taken pretty much the same text. Tapasya Nanji helped me with the text. It is taken from the Sanskrit Subodhini book for today's text. For pretty much in the, you can say pretty much for today's text, it's there in Subodhini. Okay, there is a question. Nurpasya kanakam bhavati. Bhavati is akarmaka. So is it okay to have kanakam? All right, so let's see. So we have this one. Nurpasya kanakam bhavati. Kings is the gold. So king has the gold. So here what is the subject? Bhavati is the verb. And bhavati is a intransitive verb. Means it does not take the second case object. But what is the subject here? Kanakam is the subject. And kanakam is not the second case here. It is the first case. Like vanam, it's a neuter noun. Kanaka is the gold, it's a neuter noun, it is the subject. So that's why it says kanakam bhavati. Do not think that it's the second case. It is actually the first case. Like vanam, vane, vanani, kanakam. So in the accusative case, sometimes we explicitly write prati and sometimes not. How to know when it is needed? So prati, if you look at this word prati in the second case, prati means towards, to or towards. Now in second case, if I say dasaha kupam gacchati, the servant goes to the well. If I use the word prati, it also means the same thing, but prati will actually mean towards. So slight different sense. So I am going towards something. So like particularly when I'm approaching a person, like I'm approaching something. So then you will use the word prati. Okay, there is a question. Can I omit mama in I have 5 fingers? Then how will you say I have 5 fingers? If you remove the word mama, then it says panch angulini santi, 5 fingers. There are 5 fingers. There is no sense of that I have 5 fingers. So if you remove the word mama, all the word will remain pancha angulini santi. And I'll double check on this word. I'm not too sure angulini, but I just wanted to give you a sense. So there are 5 fingers. So that's all it will mean. Mama is actually saying that I have 5 fingers, not that there are 5 fingers. Okay, so with these questions, I hope you will find it useful in your understanding of the text. Okay, there is a question. For the word they in Sanskrit, there are 2 words, te and tani. Can it be used interchangeably? So let's see. If you look at pronoun table, and we have tad, saha taute. So this is what person is referring. Saha taute. Te means they. Saha means he. Tad, masculine. And if you see here, tani, it also means they in neuter. So when the word is neuter, you will use tani. When the word is masculine, you will use te. When the word is feminine, you will use ta. So they are not interchangeable. You have to see what is the noun it is referring to. So depending upon the masculine, feminine and neuter, it will become te, tani or ta. Okay, so with this, I will have a quick exercise, and after that, I'll take the questions. I will take the questions which you have sent me in an email from the previous week. So the exercise is simple. It is the 5 sentences, and I have given the vocabulary here also. So you can try. You can translate these sentences with the help of this vocabulary. So right now it is 9:55. So we'll meet in about 10 minutes. Okay. So thank you. Welcome welcome back everyone. So these sentences, I hope you found them without any difficulty. They are very simple sentences. Saha grahat vidyalayam gacchati. That would be he goes from home to school. And then second is alam daivena. Daiva is the fate. So ena for fate. Parishramam kuru. So parishramam is the hard work or exertion. Exert yourself. And kuru, if you remember, it is the lot lakara, the giving the order or command to someone. It's coming from kru dhatu, to do. So that means exert yourself, because it is in the madhyama purusha. So exert yourself or do hard work, like that. Then third is sikshaka chhatraya kupyati. Teacher is angry with the student. Dasharatha Rame Sniyati. So Rame is in the 7th case because of this verb Sniya. So here Dasharatha has affection for Rama, or feels affection for Rama. Mama Trini Pustakani Santi. So Trini is 3. It's the word coming from 3. So in English it's also 3. Probably English word has come from 3. So 3 books. Pustaka is the books. Pustakani, it's a neuter noun. So coming in Pustakani. Santi. Santi is R. So I have 3 books. So these were very simple sentences. I just wanted to give you some idea of the cases. You might have already done many of these kind of sentences earlier, and probably more difficult ones. So we'll take the questions, some of the questions I have received in the last couple of weeks. So that's what we'll do now. Okay, so one person is saying, sorry, I have many questions, please. So I'm happy, actually. You don't have to be sorry. That shows that you are putting hard work and you are having questions because of that. And it's a nice indication. So I would rather prefer to have questions coming from you instead of just you not doing the exercises and not asking any questions. So do not worry if your questions relate to the previous exercises also, you can still ask them rather than not asking them, because that is the way to clarify and move forward. Our purpose is somehow to acquire the knowledge So do not be afraid or feel hesitation for asking the questions. So these are nice questions anyway. So because they could be useful for everybody, I have included them here. So it is saying Thomas Eugene. So this is related to the previous exercise on samasa. We did that. So in Karam Dharaya, if you remember, I can open the Eugene's book. And here it is saying page 233. So let's see if I can. Page 233. So Karma Dharaya Samasa. So the question is, I had said Karam Dharaya is the adjective and noun. Neela Kamalam, Neelam Kamalam, blue lotus. So here the question is, another type of Karma Dharaya is noun and noun. Rajarshihi, the king and the seer. I expected Raja Rishihi, nominative singular from Rajan is Raja. So Raja Rishihi, so in the samasa when you make Karma Dharaya samasa, it will not be Raja and Rishi, it will be Rajan plus Rishihi. So that's how you make. And in this case, what happens is Nakara gets dropped from the first word. So so it becomes Raja Rishi. It does not take the nominative singular. It takes the Pratipadika, the base word. And base word here is Rajan. And Nakara is dropped, so it becomes Raja Rishi. Then there is another question. If pronouns are used as prior members of the compound, they are put in the base forms. Tat Purushaha. I expected Tat Purushaha. The base form is Tad. In this case, it is correct. The base form is Tad, and it's because of a Sandhi rule that it becomes Tat Purushaha. So Tad plus Dakara plus Pakara makes the Sandhi as Takara. So this question was asked by few people that how does Dakara becomes Takara, which Sandhi it is. So we did discuss a little bit of these Sandhis and not in a lot of detail. I'll refer you to the Sanskrit Subodhini book. I'll show you. So in Sanskrit Subodhini book, the rules are given in one place for the consonant Sandhis. So consonant Sandhi rule, if you go to the page number 108 in Sanskrit Subodhini book, page number 108. So if you go here, this shows the consonant Sandhi rules. So one of the rules here it is, voiced stop becomes unvoiced stop. What does it mean is, if we go to our alphabet and we look at this table, which we have 5 by 5 matrix of the consonants, these 5 by 5, the 25 letters, they are called sparsha or contacts. So these are called contacts or sparsha. He's saying in the rule, and out of them, if you remember, we had this voiced and unvoiced thing, that these 5 by 5, the voiced ones are, these are the voiced plus voice, and these are unvoiced. So the first two letters of every group, they are unvoiced. So a voiced stop becomes an unvoiced stop before an unvoiced consonant. That's what he's saying. So Tad, so if you look at here in the matrix alphabet, Dakara is a voiced consonant. It's a voiced sparsha, voiced consonant. and takara is an unvoiced consonant, and pakara is also unvoiced consonant. So the rule here is saying that when a voiced stop is followed by an unvoiced stop, voiced stop becomes an unvoiced stop when it is followed by a unvoiced consonant. So dakara, when it is followed by kakara, becomes takara. Tad plus kamalam, tat kamalam. If you again look at here, rule here, it says tad kamalam, tat kamalam. Dakara followed by kakara. Dakara is the voiced consonant, kakara is the unvoiced consonant. So dakara becomes takara, corresponding unvoiced consonant. So in the same group, it will not become kakara, but in the same group it will become takara. So similarly, dakara here is tad purushaha. So pakara is the unvoiced consonant, dakara is followed by pakara, it becomes the corresponding unvoiced consonant, takara. So you can read these rules. If you don't understand, we can have a session on those separately on the consonant sandhi, but some of them we have already covered and some of them he has given. These are given sort of nice manner here in a summarized manner. It will be nice if you can go through them. So that's the sandhi rule which makes it tat purusha. Then the question is page 239, Thomas E. Jean's book, exercise 4D. Manmata alpam pustakam pathati tat ramate cha. I expected manmata alpam pustakam pathati tad ramate cha. According to sandhi rules, when the word ends in takara, takara changes to dakara before voiced consonants like refa. That is correct actually. So that is a mistake here, and it should become dakara indeed. So this is an error here. It should become dakara. So good observation. And second thing is, ramate generally takes the seventh case. It is like enjoy, that feeling of, so it does not take the second case. But in E. Jean's book, that part has not been observed very strictly, and because this thing has been there for many places, I did not want to correct everywhere. But this part is correct. It should be tad ramate, not tat ramate. Then there is another question. Bahu sukhasya data guruhu. A teacher is the giver of much happiness. If I write the vigraha of bahu sukhasya, would it be bahunaha sukhasya? That is correct. Bahunaha, if you look at our nominal table, vastu, this is the ukaranta nomin, ukaranta neuter. Bahu is the ukaranta neuter, and vastunaha, so sukh, bahunaha, so like that it will come, bahunaha, so vastunaha, bahunaha, that sixth case. So that is correct, bahunaha sukhasya. Then there is another question, shighra krishnoa sholpe grame tishtati, Thomas E. Jean's book. So if you have done exercises which we have, you can easily follow what these questions are saying. If you have not done the exercises, you might feel a little lost here. So could I do the samasa? Shighra krishno sholpe grame tishtati. The swift black horse stands in the little village. So little village, if you want to do samasa, it's possible. So just like, so alpa and grama, these two words, if you want to do samasa, it can become, so alpa plus grama, it can become alpa grama, it can become a samasa, and that is fine. That is fine to do. You remember, this samasa generally are optional in the sense that in a sentence I can say alpe grame or alpa grame, both will be correct. Then there is this exercise sentence, kada sundari dhenuhu atra shighra nadya agamishyati. When will the beautiful cow come from here, from the swift river? So he is saying, could I do the samasa sundari dhenu, sundara dhenu? You can. So it will become sundara dhenuhu. So sundari dhenu. So here what happens, as per the samasa rule, if it's a karmdhara samasa, where it is sundari dhenu, it's an adjective noun. And if it's a feminine, it's an adjective, it is the normal word is taken. Sundara is the normal word, its feminine becomes sundari. So when you make a samasa, you make sundara dhenu, like that. So even though it's a feminine, but because of it's an adjective, it becomes a normal form. Like sundari was made from sundara. Sundari means beautiful, feminine. Sundara means beautiful, masculine. So it will take the sort of normal masculine form when making samasa, but it will still mean beautiful cow because dhenu is the feminine. So there will be no confusion here. So that's the samasa rule. And dhenum drushtva ramaniyo balo bapyam jalam ramate. Could I do the samasa here? Dhenum drushtva ramaniya balaha. So yes, the beautiful boy. You can do samasa here. Ramaniya bala would be fine. Then there is a principal question. In Thomas Egan's book, the vocabulary for nouns are given. Nominal singular, shishyaha phalam karma pita. To commit it to memory, do you recommend to learn it by the nominal singular form or in the base form? So what he's asking is like, shishyaha phalam karma pita, these words should be remembered in the vocabulary in the nominal singular form or the pratipadika base form. It is better to remember by the nominal singular form. The reason is this, that way you will know the gender. So if you say shishyaha, you will know the gender, that it's a masculine. Phalam, you know that it's a neuter. So like that. Karma, if you understand the vibhakti, in this case it is important to know the base word also, but then you will know it's a neuter. Pita, so that if you, and these are the forms which you encounter in the text. No, these are not the forms you encounter in the text. So once you understand this, you will know what is the base word also. So in the first stage, I would say you can go with this, and then as your grammar knowledge improves, you will know that what is the base word also. Why the samasa, there is a question, the same questions coming. Why the samasa compound was not formed from the following words? Little village, we already covered them. Why it is not formed? So it is option, you can form them, it is fine, or you cannot form them. Moha kalilam, sashti tatpurusya mohasya kalilam. Could it be panchami tatpurusha, mohat kalilam? Sometimes there is an option. So in the sense, like you will see the word moha kalilam in the text. Now, how do you interpret that word? You say mohasya kalilam is the moha is the delusion, and kalilam they are translating as the thicket of delusion. So it is coming from, mohat means it's coming from delusion. Delusion is the source, or it is made of delusion. Then mohasya kalilam. Anything can be done as long as the sense is conveyed, and sometimes both can be valid and you could have slightly different sense of the sentence. In exercise 5D, he's saying the word is implied. Shouldn't the satya shatru be in accusative instead of nominative? So let's see the exercise 5D in Thomas Egan's book. I am not, ignorance is the enemy of the truth. So the way he has solved this thing, Avidya Satya Shatruhu. So not put the asti here. So asti, what the question here is, Satya Shatru be in accusative instead of nominative because it is the object. Avidya is the, so with this word is, asti does not take the second case as an object. So this, just like in English, if you say ignorance is the enemy of truth, you will not use that word to or that kind of thing. It is, they are like one and the same thing. So in Sanskrit, the verbs like bhu, us, which means the verb of being or becoming, they do not take the object in the second case. So it comes in the nominative case only. In this question, we again have action and action. So we have to make a compound with karma and akarma. I remember the comment you made in the third class about the answers to the chapter 16 exercise being wrong in this regard. So I went back and reviewed the class notes and chapter 16 once again. The difference between itaretara and samahara. What confuses me is the following. On 212 of the book, page paragraph 14, it says the word ending in an usually act in compounds, like the words ending in akara. And then it also gives the example of Rama Raja. So let's see the 212. So 212, page number 212. Here, it is saying prior to the last member of the compound, some words such as Rajan take the akara ending as a prior member and also as the last member of the compound. But generally, words ending in an usually act in compounds like the words that end in akara. For example, Atman is often reduced to Atma when it is prior to the last member of the compound. So remember always, the nakara is dropped when it is the first member of the compound. Rajan is a special word. So in Rajan, whether it is the first word or last word of the compound, nakara is dropped, not otherwise. So that part you have to just remember. That Rajan is a special word, but generally nakara in unending words, nakara is dropped when it is the first member of the compound. So I hope it is clear. If it is not, you can write an email and that should be, we'll respond to that. I would like to know a bit more about Bhavishyati is akarmaka, cannot take object. When it takes no object, one more nominal will be nominative. Okay, that is correct. I presume there can be any number of nominals here. Rama will be a king and a sage and a poet. All nominals will be nominative. That is correct. What would happen for another verb like drakshati? Which one would be correct? Ramaha Raja Drakshati, Ramaha Rajanam Drakshati. So Drakshati is the future form of the verb drush. That means to see. That means Ram will see the king. So here this is not bhu. The bhavishyati, the bhu verb is not taking the object, but drush, pashyati, that is that takes an object. So it will come in the second case, not in the first case. So this will be the correct. Ramaha Rajanam Drakshati. Which was the verb which takes two objects? So there are certain verbs which takes two objects, like da, to give. So not da does not take, but for example, say vad. So when we have the word called vad, that takes two objects. So vad means I am telling you this words. So what I am saying, the words, that will be the object, and to whom I am speaking, that also will take the second case. So some verbs can take two objects in Sanskrit. So are there more such cases to learn about, more verbs which act differently or verbs which take special cases only? Where to get this knowledge? So we already discussed some verbs today in our class which take the special different cases. If you really want to know, there is a place called Dhatu Kosha. I have given the links in our special document. They are for advanced studies, but if you are interested, you can refer to them. Sometimes dictionary can give you that information. So this we already answered, how here Tatpurusha becomes Tatpurusha because of Sandhi rules. Which Sandhi rule? We already discussed that part. So here saying dukkham atita, dukkhatita, how is the samas dukkhatita arrived? Because dukkham is the, so samasa takes the, samasa takes the dukkha plus atita, like that. So it is the base word which is taken in samasa, not the, so that's why it becomes dukkhatita, a plus a akara, dukkhatita. So it is not from dukkham, it is from dukkha plus atita. So that's how it becomes dukkhatita, because samasa is formed from the base word. Okay, then there's a question. In your solutions, this is not applied. Deshpande, page 38. So Deshpande book, that is our Sanskrit Subodhini. And if we say page 38, so this is the page 38 here. So here he has given that there is an optionally, an anuswara is further changed. So this we have seen. Final makara, when followed by a consonant, is changed into anuswara. Ramam vadati, Ramam vadati. This dot, that makes it anuswara. He's saying there is an optionally, the anuswara is further changed to a nasal consonant, which is homoorganic with the following consonant. So it becomes, this anuswara becomes nakara, for example, before this ka, kha, ga, gha, like that. This change is very less common, and it can make the things a little bit more complex to read, and that's why we did not include it in our solutions. In the text, this is not so common to have this sandhi, and this is saying optionally, so most of the time you will see this not happening. That's why, and I did not want to complicate the things in the text, and we did not include it. But just so you know that sometimes you will encounter these things, and you can understand that that's how it is becoming. Okay, then a few comments. We may be going a little 5 minutes over, but I just want to go through some comments, which are some beautiful comments here. So people who are working really hard, I'm very happy that thank you for your answers. I learned a few new things and happy to know I was generally on the right track with 215. That is exercise 215. I really put in a lot of focus on that exercise and really enjoyed it. Sanskrit is perhaps getting to the point where some things are getting a little easier, and hence it is becoming fun. Now I feel a bit strange if I don't put in some Sanskrit workout each day. So I'm happy that Sanskrit indeed becomes a fun and enjoyable thing once you start working a little bit more on it. And that is the beauty of it, that if it can become, it can seem a very dry language from a distance, but it is something which can really be a fun to learn. And those of you who are working diligently and doing the exercise, I'm sure you can share this experience of this person. So then there's another comment here. Attach the classwork for exercise 208 and up to 11. I could not attend session 4 in person, but I'm managing to catch up with the video. Thank you for posting the recording sessions. Many appreciations. Content is well organized and explained. I'm able to understand some of the scriptures that we recite every day. So you see, this is the beauty, and this is one of the things why we are studying Sanskrit, so that we can understand the scriptures. And people have already started seeing the progress in their understanding. Although not completely, the Sandhi and Samasa Vigraha exercise are surely helping to decipher the words. And that's the beauty of it, that once you start working on it, you will start noticing these changes. I'm still finding it difficult to get the Vibhakti correct. I struggle to understand the answer to G and H in the Eugene's textbook for English to Sanskrit translation. The others I attempted to write first in pencil and then copied the correct answer from the text. The progress is gradual, but for the words like pond, I'm still struggling with the declensions. So thank you for providing feedback. It is way beyond the expectations from in a huge class like this, but surely helping with the learning. So this is, I really want to appreciate Swami Tapasyananji. He is taking a lot of effort to go through each email and responding to those emails, giving you the feedback and the solutions. So and that definitely helps those people. And therefore, I would encourage all of you to submit the exercises, to send the questions to us. And even if you are lagging behind, so some people told me they are not submitting the exercises because they are lagging behind. They are still working with the previous exercises from Sanskrit 1 course or in this course. Even in that case, I would suggest you that you please submit the exercise solutions to us. And if you have any questions along with that, so it will definitely help you. And we can help you wherever you have a problem in not understanding. So even if you are lagging behind, please feel free to submit the exercise. I know one person, she was, when we started Sanskrit 2 course, she was still in the halfway of Sanskrit 1 course, and then she did whole Sanskrit 1 course, and now she has completely caught up with the Sanskrit 2 course. So she always kept submitting the exercises gradually from Sanskrit 1 course, and now she is completely up to date on Sanskrit 2 course, including learning Devanagari. Then there is another comment here. I appreciate so much of the work of Swami, who did this fantastic nominal declension table for us, and that I have urged to say big thank you so much. So this is again Swami Tapasyananji. He did this table, and really it's a very helpful resource. I would recommend all of you to download that and print it for you, and you can print it in whichever format. It is a good reference for everybody who is working on Sanskrit. It is in the repository. Though it is definitely a challenge for me to go along with the high level of the course and not so much used in English, I'm enjoying the lessons very much. Thank you. If we now will change to Devanagari scripture, I suggest to do it a little bit slower pace, because I think we all need some time to get used to it and to be able to read Devanagari more fluently. So yes, that's why we are going a slower pace, changing to Devanagari. And I'm sure that you have started learning, and it will not take a long time, because I know many people who had no exposure whatsoever to Devanagari now are submitting their exercises in Devanagari, and they are pretty good Devanagari, like they are doing it very correctly. So it's once you put your heart into it, it's not difficult to learn. Thank for the lesson just now. It's amazing that we have already finished the whole textbook. That was for the E-Genes part 1. Here is some feedback. Use of Devanagari. I think using Devanagari will challenge us and at the same time will help us learn more. So I am all for it. Thank you. Then thank you for your help. I love the lesson notes. They are so well explained. Please note that I did not send the exercises for the book with Devanagari, as I have not learned it yet. There's a lot of work to do to understand the grammar fully. And for someone who has no prior knowledge of Sanskrit, I'm doing my best, and I have limited time as I have a lot of other responsibility. So I'm very appreciate all your efforts. At least you are making the effort to learn the Devanagari and submit the exercises. So that's a great thing. And it will not be very long for you to learn Devanagari also. So with this, I will encourage all of you to submit the homework and exercise, even if you are lagging behind. And some people said that they are finding some challenge with the technology, like they do not know how to use the repository, how to use the Zoom. So please send us an email if you are facing the technical difficulties. We can conduct a small session just to give you some technical guidelines, or some volunteers can help you. So if you are having the challenge with the technology, and because of that you think your learning is not getting up to the mark, please send us an email and we will see that how can we help in that regard. Okay, so with this, I will just discuss the homework exercise. So we have exercise 222, and this is Sanskrit Subodhini, lesson 5. This is the solution. 1 second. So this is 5, and this is only one exercise in 5. So we will not be doing in Sanskrit Subodhini the exercises for English to Sanskrit translation. So we will skip those exercises. And also I found that the website which I had referred to, which was giving the solutions, there are a lot of mistakes. So we will do those exercises ourselves, and we will post the solutions in the repository for the Sanskrit Subodhini. This causes some extra work on our part, of course, because we are pretty small team here, and but because there are errors in the solutions, we will post the solutions correct solutions on the repository. So this is exercise lesson 5 and lesson 6. And this is 3 exercise here, 1, 2, and 3. So you can still listen to the audio, and this I will recommend you to listen to the audio because that gives you a sense, and this is done by the author, so that should be correct. This audio, the solution exercise was done by somebody, I think a student, so there are more mistakes, but this is done by the author himself. So that should be pretty accurate, the audio of the exercises. So please listen to these. That will give you an idea that how to chant, how to speak Sanskrit, how to speak the correct sounds correctly. Okay, so with this, I'll just see if there are any quick questions. So there is a comment here that we don't have the lesson 4 exercise 6 in the solution. So that is the English to Sanskrit, and we will try to incorporate that, but you can skip it. English to Sanskrit exercises, you can skip them from Sanskrit Subodhini. So, and also the notes, class notes, I just want to tell you that Bindima here and Swami Tapasyananji both are working very hard to prepare the class notes, and please take advantage of those class notes. And with the WhatsApp, we will inform you now when we are updating the class notes file. So whenever we are updating a file like class notes, we'll send you a quick WhatsApp message so that you know that class notes are there in the repository and you can access them. Okay, so with this, we'll close the session with the prayers. Sorry for the delay today. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.